It's an equal sum game.
Yeah, or helped. Absolutely, it did help. I was helped by one of the picking matchups. I'm not going to lie, but it was still it's still fun.
You guys ready to rock?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
this.
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back in the district, and it's week 15, man. You're either enjoying a bye, you're crying because you didn't get in, or you're playing to get further in the first steps of the playoffs. And, you know, Mother Nature's got to come in and make it challenging for us. Little COVID action, little Omicron, Decepticons, Optimus Prime. I don't know which way it's coming, but guys, a lot to plan for, a lot of changes to make, a lot of things to adapt to. What do we do in the district then? We bring in the best. The winningest player on the planet is back in the district. Dan, how pumped are you for this man? And why don't you just tell our audience right now just how well he's doing as we go into these major money weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, welcome to Chad Schroeder. And he is just killing it as usual. I can't even look at all the contests he's in because I'm not even in some of them. But in the NFFC online championship, he is in first place overall in the total competition. In the NFFC primetime, he has 4 of the top 11 overall spots. The NFFC Classic, 4th overall. The FFPC main event, he's 8th overall and has 43 out of the 608 teams. Think about that for a second. 43 out of 608. And then the FFPC football guys, 12th overall. I don't even know how many teams you have in that. That one's too many to try to scroll through. But it's just amazing and impressive, Chad. You kill it every year, but this kind of seems like it might be one of your best years as far as getting teams in. You think that's true?
Yeah, from the standpoint of sort of playing downhill all year, I always calculate what my expected league money equity would be, assuming that you're going to run 50-50 in the playoffs and things like that. And with all the overall contests that I'm in, that's a large portion of my portfolio. And a lot of that money is in the overall fund. So if I can be, running ahead of my buy-ins each week, I'm in good shape. And I'm been well ahead of that all year and new high water point as we enter week 15. So it is my best year to this point probably, but I'll have a hard time matching a couple of years I've had in the past without getting pretty lucky. So.
Right. Yeah. That overall money is, when you cash one of the big ones, that definitely pays off in a way that you just can't do it with, just the individual league money. But as you said, just being ahead on those individual league fees and, getting your money back and then some on that, turning a profit before you even get to the overalls. That's that's a great place to be in. So congratulations.
Appreciate it.
No, it's just a tremendous season, Chad, and we're so excited to have you on. A lot of people are starting off their playoffs this week. We're all starting our playoffs, and a lot of teams are making some hard decisions. So hopefully they get a chance to listen to your process. We had you on this summer; it was great, and now I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to you. This even in the season.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
For sure, man. Straight up baller on the show tonight, and the results, right? The results and the consistency is why you guys are tuning in right now to get the goodness. As we said, you want to shred these playoffs, and it's a challenging one. So usually when there's unknown factors coming in, it evens out the playing field. So maybe you're not one of the favorites going into these playoffs, but you stay tuned till the end of this show, and you have probably a way better chance going in to get to that trophy. You still have a chance, man. Everybody's got a chance any given Sunday. Chad, before we get into the goodness, I don't think we were asking this last time you were on. I know you have your own style when it comes to building these rosters, the research you do. What's a source or a stat or something that you feel is important to you in your research, whether that's building rosters throughout the season, looking at sit starts, just something that you think is important to you that maybe Fantasyland can benefit from?
Well, so it's a tricky question. I don't like to leave anybody out, but there's one individual that deserves mentioning, and so I'll single him out. And I really like Dwayne McFarland's data at Pro Football Focus.
Friend of the show.
He's a friend of mine. I met him back in 2008 in the shootout at the Bellagio for $1 million in the Fantasy Football Open Championships that didn't last too long. But we don't talk as much as I'd like, but we usually chat a couple times during the football season, and it's always a blast. But his data, fits logically how my brain tries to look at things. I like to have guys that are getting utilized, even if the stats aren't backing up how their utilization lies, versus playing like the flukier player. One example just off the top of my head, like Hunter Henry, kept getting in the end zone there, and I have a friend of mine, Joe Berg, that I coerced when I realized I couldn't run this many teams alone, to help me out a little bit. And he's like, why don't you want to play Hunter Henry? Because it's the volume's not there. And one of these times he's going to put up a 0, and then he kept getting in the end zone every week. And then finally I bite the bullet and play him. And then here comes the 0. But Dwayne's stuff picks that up, more so oftentimes than the projections that are out there. So that he's invaluable, brilliant guy, big numbers guy. And I come from an accounting background in school, so kind of a nerd that way. So I like his stuff a lot.
Looks like you hung that.
And then also another invaluable tool, being in so many leagues, you'll see great players, and there's about a dozen of them that I can think of right away. When I see that they picked up a guy on Wednesday for cheap, it gets me looking in, and then I'll go and pick up that guy on the cleanup FAAB run. If I have a roster spot, a little dead weight, if you're in that many leagues, you got to take advantage of the plethora of information that you can gather from those leagues. And that's one advantage to playing a lot of teams. There's a lot of disadvantages as well, but that's one advantage that you need to take advantage of.
I think that's an awesome point. We actually we talked about that on a couple of previous shows. We had Glenn Lowy on, and I'll give Glenn a shout out. A lot of my Cordero Patterson shares this year are because I saw Glenn grabbing him, and in so many places I was able to get him on that second waiver wire run. So I think that's a great call by Chad.
Straight up
for
ballers, man. Guild's 927. It seems you put up 220 on him in your main final. He's giving you a fist. He appreciated that. Shout out to the chat, man. The chat's in full effect. You got Ryan McDowell in here, Wayne Ellis, Ricky Ortiz. Guys, bring the questions. I see a couple in there. We'll get to them. We're talking about some of these things, so we'll knock them out as we go. But keep the questions coming. Appreciate the comments and smash the like, guys. We bring guys like Chad in here to help you guys out. We want you guys to get those trophies, get that money this season. Like I said, it's a tough season. Opportunities knocking. Guys, let's get to it. We do Should We Care going in. It's supposed to be rapid fire. We do the best we can with the rapid fire aspect. Dan, I'll let you kick it off. You had an interesting tweet today in regards to this topic.
Oh, yeah. So as far as COVID goes, I mean, it's just been insane how many players have been put on the COVID list over the past 2 days. 75 players just over the past 2 days. That does not include any players who got put on last week and still haven't come off yet. 75 players is basically 1.5 NFL teams that have gone on the COVID list out of 32. So if you think it's not going to affect the playoffs, I think you're probably wrong. Because if it's spread that far, we don't know what's going to be tomorrow and Thursday and Friday and Saturday, before we even really get to the main slate of games. This could be just a really, really wild couple of weeks here, as we just head into the playoffs. So, Chad, what are you thinking about that? What are your thoughts on the COVID, list and how many players are going on it, and what can you do, if anything, to attack it when you no longer have waivers available?
Well, at this point, there's not much you can do in a lot of the leagues that I'm playing in, and I'm kind of regretting now that I held on to guys like Antonio Brown, because I might have been better off getting another bullet to be throwing at people. But it is what it is now. I'm not going to really beat myself up over decisions that I already made incorrectly or correctly. It's just time to go. But one thing I would say is now with, we've got Thursday night game kicking off week 15 here. And then now the Saturday games kick in. And now it seems like at any given time, it seemed like usually there'd be a little bit of an advance notice on these COVID situations. But now with this Higbee situation, it can just happen at any time on game day or any other time. So just keep in mind that if you have a very close call, it might serve you best to just go ahead and take the guy that's playing in the earlier game if it's within a half a point or whatnot. If you're going to be down to who knows, at any point somebody can get COVID, and then all of a sudden you're playing a much worse option or no option whatsoever. So especially if it's coming down to the Monday night game and you have a closer call that's on Sunday, or same thing with Saturday game, I'm going to lean towards just going ahead and taking the earlier player. That's the only thing I really have to say about the leagues that there's no more free agency.
No, that's awesome, man. I hope people have their pen and paper, because I was going to ask you, one little tip, and that's a huge one. You always want that tiebreaker, right? Because you're usually picking between 2 or 3 guys. You throw it in a couple DMs, hope your friends help you out. But that's a huge one, Chad. Honestly, I didn't, obviously not a little pea brain like me. I never thought of that. That's I like that a lot, man. As tip of the day so far, as we run through these COVID, obstacles during the playoffs. Theo, you wanna take the next one?
Yeah, sure. How are we approaching Rashad Penny? Do you think that was just because he was playing the Texans? We saw him go for 137 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. Are you viewing him as an RB2 this week? What would be your approach to Rashad Penny moving forward?
Yeah, I haven't gone back and watched that game a second time yet, but he did look pretty decent, surprisingly, in the plays that I saw. I think a lot of it's due to the Texans. I'm not a believer in the Seahawks offensive line. They're probably going to be trailing against who knows what the Rams are even going to have, if there's even going to be a game. I don't know, but we'll see. But I'm very light on him, and I saw guys like Nelson picking him up on Wednesday night, and that's one guy that I didn't believe in enough to add on the second run, and I wish I had now, just because at this point any live body at the running back position is kind of valuable.
Yeah, that's definitely the truth. And I was kind of with you on that, Chad. I've been burned enough times by Penny, that you're always waiting for something bad to happen. The injury or whatever. I mean, it's just it's been one thing after another, and this is his 4th year in the league, and
guys, what name comes to your head, Dan? Right, like does a receiver come to your head? As soon as I started thinking about this, it's like, I know he's not going to be Davante Adams of the running backs, but I mean, how many dynasty players in year 3 of Davante Adams' career dropped him just like that? And then next thing you know, he's Davante Adams. Is there hope moving forward with Penny, you think, Dan? Like more beyond this playoffs stretch is my question.
I was able to maintain hope in Davante Adams all the way through. I lost hope a while back in Rashad Penny, to be totally honest.
Same.
He is to me, the old Charlie Brown running up to kick the football and Lucy pulling it away. He is the Lucy in that particular situation. That's what
I will say this about Penny. I looked up at I was going through my FFPC best balls that I had remaining, and he got me through I got 5 through to the next week, and he was on 3 of them. He was the difference maker, and 3 of them getting me through. So I about crap my pants when I saw Penny was even on any of my teams, and let alone one after another. But
well, I got to say kudos to you on that, Chad. I have yet to have Penny do anything positive for any of my teams. So.
Yeah, that's how I would. Until I noticed those best balls. Those are funny sometimes.
Yep, they are for sure.
Let's go to Vegas, Chad. Foster Moreau, popular pickup recently with Waller being injured. Now he's popping up on the injury report. Waller with his back and knee not back at practice yet. Last I heard, I don't know if you guys have a different update, but how are you approaching this? Waller, with the high draft capital he took in coming into the season, how should owners manage this between these 2 tight ends?
At this point, I don't know that there's much you can do. If you still have waivers available, just try to get another guy. If you have Waller and Mora or whatever the hell his name is, he cost me a lot of matchups and standings points when I had him a couple weeks ago. But I still think he's a decent play going. I think he's better than what his results have been the last couple of weeks. If you have to rely on him, but you look to see what's out there on the waiver wire and try to add a 3rd tight end if you can, if you have room. I don't know what type of guy would be available, but it's possible like a Higbee would be out there occasionally in some of these leagues. Keep an eye on the Cleveland situation. I think
Landry and Hooper.
Yeah, my brain doesn't work after all this FAAB. And then that's no joke either. I'm not kidding. Hooper, I think, went on the COVID list.
Yeah.
And Njoku might be ready.
Who knows? But I think Harrison Bryant's back. If he's the only one standing, he's a good athlete. He would be a better play than like Moreau, I think, if he's the only tight end going. I don't know. It's dire straits out there. I don't know what to tell you, but most of the leagues are done with FAAB, and you're probably just gonna have to roll with Moreau.
For home leagues, keep an eye on Tyler Conklin. He had a pretty big letdown last week, but the usage, like Chad talked about, the usage was there for Conklin. He's playing.
He's been good, man. He's been good.
100%.
Yeah, you can't expect these tight ends to be every single week, but Conklin's been good, man.
So
I wasn't expecting him to be available much, but yeah, he's a better option than all these guys I was talking about.
Shout out to Anna in the chat wanting to know guys are picking up. So we'll keep the goodness coming. We got a lot more coming. Michael Carter, we had a question. I saw it earlier.
Yeah. While Anna's question is up there, or do you want to hit?
There we go.
Okay.
We'll get back to you, Ricky.
Yep. So one place I like to look for the top players is Fantasy Mojo. Generally on Twitter, we'll post after the waiver runs and in these big contest weeks, he'll be posting who the hot pickups were and how much they were going for and so forth like that. And so that's a great spot. If you're playing in a little bit more casual leagues or whatever, a lot of times because these contest leagues are a little bit deeper rosters and everything, you can find players that are still going to be available, in a league with, fewer teams or smaller roster sizes or whatever. So that's a great place to look. But otherwise, I know one of the things I do, and I'm sure Chad and Theo and JD all do this too, is you kind of look through, the leagues that you're in and see who was getting picked up and who was getting dropped, and then look around and, oh, that's a good idea. I wonder if he's available in any of my other leagues, and check it out. And if he's there, then get your bid in. Anything else on that, Chad?
The only thing I would add, and I don't rely on it or anything, but it just pops up in my Twitter feed, so I could see it being valuable for the home league type of player potentially, that doesn't subscribe to, doesn't want to spend money to subscribe to places. But this, have you guys seen this like FF robot thing? Pop up in your Twitter feed?
No,
I haven't.
Please tell, Chad. Look at you up with the innovation, the technology update here from.
That's
Chad.
all I know about it. I think it's called like FF Robot, and it shows like it'll show who's the most dropped and added players, and it just occasionally pops up in my Twitter feed, and I don't even follow the person. So
is that a Twitter account called FF Robot?
I don't know.
Okay,
that's how little I know, and I don't follow it.
While we're going.
Up in my feed.
If anyone knows anything about it, drop it in the chat. All right, guys, let's go. Let's talk New York Jets really quick. Let's go back to, did you guys have anything to add, Theo, to the Anna's question?
No, I'll co-sign what Dan said. Fantasy Mojo is an invaluable source. Even if you're not an FFPC player, you should still subscribe to it, because it shows you what the most expensive drafts are doing. What a lot of the high stakes players are doing, especially with your preparation for your season. If there's an early main event draft, you can see the actual board of it. So I think it's an invaluable source, and we've had Darren Armani on the show. He was great, and he's fantastic about getting that updated. Like Dan said, to show you where people were spending their money, and it's almost instantaneous what he's doing over there. So we highly recommend that. He's
a good dude. I feel terrible, and I'll tell this story on here. Like I feel like a super tight ass, but
please tell.
This is embarrassing, but this speaks to him. So my buddy Darren Summer, yep. We were just talking one night at the bar what links we were, or what sites we use, and he mentioned that one. I go, I was always wondering what that site's all about, and this is right before draft season, and so he just sent me the link with his login, and so I logged in. Then I got too busy and never got around to subscribing, and so just a couple weeks ago I reached out to him and go, I used your site for the draft season, so I want to pay you the subscription fee. So please give me your Venmo or whatnot. And he goes, nah, don't worry about it, man. But if you use it next year, subscribe, please. So, but yeah, it's a great site.
Yep.
I love it during draft season, especially. You get current information on exactly where guys are going. It's great. I mean,
I threw on Ricky's question here. I'm a little newer. Dan's got me testing out the NFFC. I've got a team in 13th overall. I have no idea what that means. I'm just like every week looking to see if I've won anything. But Ricky's asking, he's suggesting, Dan, or I know you guys play more NFFC. He goes and checks out the starts and sits and waiver pickups and prices from other teams in other leagues on NFFC. Do you guys agree with that? Is that something you guys look at?
I haven't done quite so much of that on NFFC myself. I mean, mostly I'm just kind of looking through my own leagues and seeing who's doing what, and that kind of gives me a pretty good idea. But yeah, that's probably a good way to go. Do you ever do that, Chad?
I'm really apologize. I got distracted by a text. Could you repeat the question real quick? Because I have a feeling that
Yeah. So Ricky's saying he can search through the main event teams on the NFFC, and you can look for what other players are doing for start sets, waiver pickups, and so forth.
Yeah, that's what I thought the question was going. And yeah, I use that a ton.
Okay.
Nice. Thanks, Ricky.
Like I start my FAAB process over there by the percent owned feature, and then they have a watch list feature. So the guys that are like 90% plus owned, I'll automatically star them because they're probably going to be people that they're people of interest, at least, even if I don't really like them as much as their ownership level. If I have dead weight, I might as well get them on board. So yeah, I use that all the time. Not so much the start sit feature, but the percent owned feature I do.
All right, guys, we're halfway through. Chad, I didn't ask you. You have a curfew? You have a.
No, we can go all night. I'm used to doing FAAB all night on Tuesday.
Guys, smash the like. We're gonna do a 24-hour sesh with Chad Schroeder, the monster beast goat of all fantasy football. Tune in, stay tuned, because the goodness is gonna keep coming. Let's do a bit more of a rapid fire through this section here. Michael Carter is a guy that Ricky's asked about, and I know I've got him on a couple teams. That backfield's a bit messy, Chad. Is this something that we should care about, that he's coming back from IR this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nobody took the job and ran with it by any means. Coleman was surprisingly reasonably effective, but that's never going to result in too many fantasy stats. And he's a running back that's going to be playing a lot probably. And Ty Johnson didn't do anything. I was really nervous about that. I don't have a lot of Johnson, and I thought he was going to put up 12 to 15 points a game there.
Same.
And he didn't do that, and I feel kind of fortunate that he didn't. But I don't have a tremendous amount of Carter myself, but I do have him on my 20K NFFC league that I made the playoffs in. So he'll be another option for me to consider there. So we'll see. But yeah, absolutely, he's a person of interest. I mean, I would assume he's rostered, and if not, in your home league, you need to go get him.
Dan, I know Sanders out in Buffalo, Emmanuel Sanders, was a guy we liked just at his price in that offense with Allen throwing the ball. He's likely out week 15. I guess my question is, do we care? And do we care as owners of other players on the rosters, whether that's Knox, Diggs, the messy backfield? What are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, Gabriel Davis, I think, is probably the most direct beneficiary, but also, Cole Beasley is going to benefit a little bit from it too. But Gabe Davis ran 51 routes on 63 Josh Allen dropbacks. I'm getting this off of Jack Miller's excellent column on NBC Sports Edge. It's called Strength in Numbers. It's kind of like it's similar to what Dwayne McFarland does, but just kind of goes at it from a little bit of a different angle. And, I am an avid reader of all of Dwayne's stuff, just as Chad is, but, Jack does a nice job here too. And, he was just pointing out how much he was benefiting from, Gabe Davis is benefiting from Sanders being out. So, yeah. So that's a fantastic, nice little nugget. And I've got Gabe Davis in a few places where he's been sitting on my bench, and with what's going on this coming week with COVID and everything else, I suspect there's going to be several places I'm using him.
Just narrows that target tree, right, Theo?
Yeah, I had Gabe Davis as one of my top wide receiver ads this week in my waiver wire column on Player Profiler. He scored in back-to-back games.
Go check it out. That shit is money. Where do they find that, Theo?
On playerprofiler.com. It should be up there. But it's kind of a light week. Donovan Peoples-Jones is available in some leagues. Gabe Davis is available in some leagues. But Davis, like Dan said, he's pretty much an every down player now for Buffalo. He had the two touchdowns in back-to-back games, and he also converted a big-time first down when they really needed it and they were driving at the end of the game. So I think that kind of thing sticks with a quarterback and an offensive coordinator, and I think they're just gonna kind of ride him. He's sneaky. I think he's wide receiver 3 this week. What do you think, Chad?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm dead naked on him because of the ineptitude of this Buffalo staff. It took an injury to get him on the field. He's so much better than Sanders. It's ridiculous. I have an investor in my portfolio that gives me a tremendous deal, and it's a good deal for him because he's made a lot of money over the years as well. But
to you guys, Dan and Theo, I will be very proud. That'll be a good moment for me if I can tell you guys that an investor in my fantasy football portfolio. Just those words, I will feel very.
That's a big time flex, Chad.
That's big time, dude. I love that. Dude. I love that. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
No, well, it allows me to play so many leagues more comfortably. But anyway, he gives me a 2/3, 1/3 deal where he gets 2/3 of the losses if I have a losing season. I get 2/3 of the profits if I have a winning season.
Guys, where else are you hearing this right now? Tell me. I would love to hear it in the chat or anyone listening in podcast format. By the way, we just dropped 250 episodes the other day. But guys, Chad's dropping some serious goodness. Chad, I had no idea about any of this, and I love that you're sharing that, man. We appreciate it.
But the moral of the story is he's a diehard Bills fan. And so we were texting when they were playing New England, and many times he asks me what I think about the Bills, and I'm like, dude, they need to play. They need to quit getting Emmanuel Sanders on the field and get Davis on the field. They're lacking speed so much on that team. Nobody can get separation. It's bogging down the whole offense, and it took an injury to make it happen. But Davis could be a difference maker the rest of the way, and I'm naked on him, and I'm hoping that he's not on a lot of rosters, to be quite frank. Yep. Especially now, Allen's got a foot injury, so they're probably going to be throwing the ball more than relying on his legs, So I think things are setting up real well for both Davis and Beasley. Going forward, it probably doesn't hurt Dawson Knox, and it can't hurt Diggs. Well, it actually might hurt Diggs because Sanders sucks, so and Davis doesn't. So.
That's a good point.
I'm trying to find that Josh Allen tweet that our friend of the show put out earlier that he was spotted somewhere without a cast on his foot.
Oh yeah, he was out at Hamilton with no walking boots or anything.
That's funny.
That's what it was. Theo, I'll go back to you because I told you guys I had one of my FFPC best ball, those best ball tournaments get through to the next round, and I missed the top 3 by like literally 3.5 fantasy points, mainly because of guys like Tyreek Hill and Mahomes just not putting the numbers. But if you look at Tyreek Hill, shout out to the football guys for dropping this goodness, but in 14 receptions, 216 yards, and 1 TD in his last 4 games. Those are not the usual Tyreek Hill numbers we're used to, Theo. Like, are we concerned here?
I mean, certainly you would like to have a blow-up game in the mix, but I mean, there's nothing you really could do at this point. If you have Tyreek Hill, you're starting him and playing him every single week, and they have a divisional Thursday night game against the Chargers this week. It's going to be a game where I think both teams are going to have their foot on the gas a little bit, and it's certainly the kind of game where Tyreek could get right. Kelsey and Tyreek Hill have both been not really producing like you're used to seeing him the last couple of weeks. But, I still have confidence in his talent, and I have confidence on the fact that the Chiefs are going to have to lean on him, at least at some point coming up. What do you guys think about that, Dan and Chad?
My perspective is just what you said. There's no point worrying about it. If you have Kelsey, you're playing him. If you have Mahomes, you're playing him. If you have Hill, you're playing him. So it's nothing it's not even worth worrying about from my standpoint.
Nice. Dan.
Yeah, same. I mean, you're going to play him. If you have a team where you can sit Tyreek Hill, congratulations to you.
That's funny. Hopkins, another receiver going to NFC here, Arizona, flexing as a contender, not looking necessarily that great this week, but undergoing an MRI. He's got 0 100-yard games, guys, this year. Chad, is he a guy you were high on coming into the season? I know this offense has a lot of upside, but the receiver himself in Hopkins, and how do you feel about it moving forward? Do we care about this?
I mean, yeah, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, I have some teams that are in the playoffs that he's on the roster. I wasn't real high on him, but I wasn't real low on him either. So at this point, you're kind of used to not using him. So it's like, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but I don't think you're going to get, irregardless, you're not going to get the Hopkins stats you were hoping for. If anything, it probably just boosts Kirk and Green and Ertz, boost those guys up a little bit.
It's true. We saw Ertz blow up the other day with a couple injuries, so that's actually a really good point. Mark Andrews, guys, tight end 1. I know I was pretty high on Baltimore as a value offense coming into this season. Now injuries are obviously, I know, Dan, we were kind of crying. Good thing is we have Jackson in in the only team that we own together, my only Dynasty team on FFPC that has not moved into the playoffs, our 8th place roster there. But Andrews as a tight end 1, does that surprise you, Dan?
I mean, it doesn't really surprise me a lot because the Ravens passing game has been flowing through him for a while. And, Hollywood Brown has had some good weeks. I mean, he had first half of the year, he was looking pretty good, but he's really cooled off. And, when push comes to shove, it always seems to go down to Andrews. So not a huge surprise. I think it's a little bit more, some of the top tight ends have kind of fallen back to him rather than Andrews really jumping out to catch them, is kind of how I see it.
Theo, how worried as an Andrews owner are you now that Lamar might be out?
I would think that Andrews is pretty much quarterback proof in that offense. I think he's a guy that the Ravens lean on. He's not only a red zone threat, but he's a first down getter for them. They look for him on third downs, and I think that he's just a rock solid tight end. And like Dan said, I mean, I think Andrews has had a great season, and you've also had injuries to Waller, injuries to Kittle, and Andrews has been a great draft pick. He was going in like the 6th round in NFFC drafts, and in FFPC drafts he dropped down to, I believe, Dan, what was at the end of the 3rd or early 4th. He was right behind Hawkinson in those drafts as well. So if you drafted Andrews, you're feeling great about it. What about you, Chad? You think the usage would stay the same with Huntley?
I think it might actually go up. He's clearly Huntley's first read, no question about it. And Huntley's a very good quarterback, I think. Well, I shouldn't say very good, but I think he can function the offense just fine. On my Lamar Jackson teams, I typically where I had him, I went naked at quarterback most of the season. Just planning on adding Huntley at the end, which I did on the cleanup run if I didn't have a more respectable option. So I think that, I think Andrews might be better off if Huntley was quarterback, and he clearly just looks to him as the first read every time.
Yeah. And just looking at Andrews, he's had the last 4 games, 10, 10, 9, and 11 targets.
That's fine.
Most of the time with in the Cleveland game, I mean, Lamar Jackson went out, late first quarter, was it? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think at that time, Andrews had just like a couple targets. So the majority of his targets really came with.
How many targets in the Bears game, Dan, if you got that?
He had 10.
Yeah, there you go. That's the game that Huntley played. So.
Yep. Exactly.
That's huge, man, for tight end, double-digit targets. That's money.
Yep.
Especially with the current landscape. Dan, we got two more receivers to hit. I'll hit mine first, and you take the last one. I'm going to go Cooper Kupp. Shout out to Sosa Cremeñas at QB's MVP. Cooper Kupp has more receiving yards than the Eagles receiving core combined. Chad, do we care?
I don't. I mean, it just speaks to Devontae Smith's not done what I was expecting, especially lately. But Cooper Kupp's been amazing. It'll be interesting to see how high he goes in drafts next year. I mean,
yeah, yep, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the best wide receiver seasons of all time. What Cooper Kupp is doing is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he should be right at near the top of the MVP list at this point.
Chad, I'm curious because none of us had him in our top 24 dynasty wise. Where would you put him right now, dynasty? If you had to kind of put him.
I was just thinking about this. I don't play dynasty league, so it's kind of hard to wrap my head around it, but.
Or even going into next season, where do you like redrafts? Where do you think he's going to be in these big tournament drafts?
I think depending on what happens with Aaron Rodgers and stuff, I think that it's going to be, he or Adams will be 1 and 2.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask you guys though about these dynasty drafts, man, I was seeing some ridiculous stats on Twitter, like. People are batting like 95% getting their teams through today on Twitter. And I'm like, am I missing the boat by not playing? What's going on here? I mean, like, where's the people that are batting like 5%?
They're not posting on Twitter. And
my assumption is, and tell me if I'm wrong, is there way too many people that are in perennial rebuild mode?
That's exactly that's why we don't talk about rebuild here. We call it reno mode, man. That's like a week or two, maybe a month. That's how we roll, man.
I mean, I think I would be great in them because I think I could transform my team into a contender through FAAB.
Yep. And
still keep my youth, but I don't know. I don't need to get involved in that.
It's got enough. It's got enough with the waiver wires.
Well, Chad, we'll set up a deal after the show. I'll get you in on some dynasty leagues, and you can carry me along on a couple of your leagues. So we'll make a trade. Yeah, but that's exactly it. I mean, just too many teams, too many owners just really are in rebuild mode all the time, and they're always searching for the newest, youngest, whatever, and they never allow their team to mature to the point where it can actually, function and win you some money.
And Chad, I'm not 90%. I'm 80%. 4 out of 5 right now with the bye week in the first round. Jay Harding, aka the Firm, he's loving your Gabe Davis love, spending his last dollar.
Yeah, that's a great place to spend it, and that's I've said it a couple times on Twitter, but I think especially with COVID and everything that's been going on, but really anytime, it just makes sense to leave yourself some money in FAAB, especially in these tournaments where you've got $1,000 and the minimum bid is $1. I mean, that's not to say that I can't get down to $50 left real quick, because I certainly can and have. But you can also make $50 last for, I've had a couple leagues where I was 3 weeks into the season, I was down to, $50, and I've made it last the entire season. I'm doing a lot of $1, $2, $3 bids, but that still works. And it's amazing how many of those that you can actually get.
Yeah, it is.
So, it just, I just don't understand the mindset of saying, well, I've got $54 left. I'm going to bid $54 on this player.
Crazy.
I'd be like, yeah, I just bid $23 and, save 31, and you'll probably get him anyway.
Agreed.
Okay, that's my rant for the day.
The best story, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter a while back, but I have never, and I've played a lot of fantasy leagues, and I've never lost a bid by $999. But I lost Josh Gordon bid when he resurfaced $1,000 to $1.
Wow.
Yeah, FFPC main event, and this guy's team he was leading the league in points at that point. Had a great team, nailed the draft, and spent all his money on Josh Gordon, and from then on, he just plummeted.
This is what I think about Josh Gordon.
It's a trap.
Guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe. We got a lot more goodness. Like, we haven't even gotten into the GM masterclass, man. Like, you have literally the winningest fantasy player on the planet in the house. I don't even know how much money he's won. We can't. Dan and I and Theo, like, even putting our brains together, we can't count the amount of money he's won playing fantasy. But guys, FFPC, we talk about often. MyFFPC.com. Playoffs are coming, guys. Whether you're playing in your league playoffs, the playoff challenge is coming up. 500 Genos, 1.29 million in prize pool money. This is just a whole lot of fun, guys. There's 2 buy-ins, 200, and you see it on the screen, $35. It's just a lot of fun, guys. It's a different challenge. it adds to the season, and once you start, you get hooked. We'll do a couple show, guys. We'll do some entries. I'm sure Andrew with the $500,000 Billies, I'm sure him and Theo will want to get some teams in. Maybe Dan and I and Theo will throw a couple in. But guys, check it out, myffpc.com. It just you can make up your whole season, right? As long as you're not entering as many teams as Chad and not winning, then you can probably make up some of those entry fees with a big bang in the end of the season with a playoff challenge. Guys, let's get into the goodness. Theo, the GM masterclass. This is why we have Chad here. When we're talking about managing these rosters, let's get into the goodness, man. Why don't you start it off?
Yeah, so Chad, how do you manage a large portfolio of postseason teams? What's your process in terms of, like, it's Monday, what do you start looking at?
Nothing. You're talking now at the postseason part?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
that's the easy part. The hard part's done. It would be a different story if you asked me about the whole season long. But I don't look at anything. I have a bunch of leagues that still have FAAB that are due tomorrow night at 10 Eastern. I'll do those, and I won't get to any lineups. I need to let my brain rest a little bit, and I'll go through my lineups on Thursday. Start looking at them Thursday morning, but there's if you can't do any FAAB, then there's no point in worrying about it right now and what your lineups are or aren't. At least when you need your brain to recover a little bit from the taxing FAAB season that I've been through.
Yeah, that's definitely the truth. And really, there's not a whole lot going on in the NFL on Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday is the first day we really start getting a lot of practice reports anyway. So,
and you don't know who's going to get put on the COVID list, and between now and Thursday anyway. So, I'll just start worrying about it then.
Yep.
You touched earlier on maybe this year trying to use Thursday night guys and Saturday guys, knowing that they're playing. When you're making start-sit decisions in like the NFFC primetime or the FFPC main event, which are a 600 or so in the main event, a larger kind of tournament setting, are you looking for playing your ceiling plays? Or are you looking at floor plays if it's 50-50 between maybe two guys on a start-sit decision?
If it's true 50-50, I would lean towards the ceiling. But it's very rare that it'll be 50-50, and I'll usually just take the guy that I think projects to score the most points in the early going, and then look for the high upside guy later on if I need to do that. And I'll also look at in these shootouts, I will sacrifice a half a point or a point to pair up my quarterback with my wide receiver. Use that as a tiebreaker. Might as well get a little correlation going if it's a close call anyway.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And just kind of a follow-up question to that. To what extent do you go through your lineups at, like during, say, the third quarter of the first wave of games and make any adjustments or anything like that on players who are playing in the late wave? Does that make sense?
Well, maybe I'll look at that a little bit more in the postseason here. But I was way too shot to be doing that after putting in all-nighters doing FAAB. I didn't do that in the regular season at all. I literally was up for 36 hours in a row most of the last 6 Saturday nights.
That is the definition of a grind.
I meant to drop this one.
You can't handle the truth.
See, guys, like Chad makes it look easy, but it's not easy, man. It's not easy.
They can say all they want. He's got a big advantage for having so many teams, and from a mathematical standpoint, that's true. I have a better chance to win the FFPC than with 89 teams than somebody that has 2 teams, obviously. But keep in mind, it's not easy, and it's not easy to draft 4 or 5 teams at a time in the first place to have the volume that I do, and it's not easy to manage that many teams to keep them effective during the season. So I would just be careful. If I end up having a good year and people think I'm going to try this and get some investors and group some money together, just be careful. Your quality of life shrinks. I had to sacrifice a lot this year to do this. I lost my mind and wasn't keeping track, during the draft season of how many teams I had and what it was going to entail. So just take it from me. It's not a great idea, especially if you have a normal job that is your bread and butter. Just be careful. You don't want to let your life get away from you doing this. And it has me a little bit during this football season. Did
it take away a bit of the fun, Chad?
All the fun.
All the fun. All right, guys. Serious. Like this is stuff you want to know, right? I mean, how many people do you know that are running 89 leagues, 89 of anything, let alone fantasy leagues, right? So
that was what 300 main events.
Yeah, you had what 300 and
311 teams I was managing actively during the season, and it was and I'm so anal, I like to do everything perfectly. So I just let this be a lesson. If you like to do FAAB thoroughly, don't try this. It's going to ruin your enjoyment of life. So
do not try this at home.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I've got 25-ish managed leagues, something like that. And it's a struggle for me, trying to do 300 plus. I wouldn't even want to try to imagine it. So kudos to you for being able to keep up with it.
Yeah, no.
Wheeler's suggesting, Theo, that Chad switch to more best balls. And I like that idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And how did you handle the one-off positions? Are you rostering multiple kickers? And I'm guessing you have multiple defenses on most of your teams. How did you approach those? Are you any teams that you're naked at one kicker? I know NFFC you have the team kickers, so this is really more of an FFP question.
Yeah. So at the places with team kicker, and I needed the points badly. And I had New England's kicker. I think he's a difference maker. I think that Belichick will kick field goals, play more of a standard old school type of game. So I think he's a difference maker. So generally at NFFC, I did roster 2 kickers if I needed the points week 14 when Folk was on bye. FFPC, the only teams that I carried 2 kickers is when I had Folk on bye. And usually I was in like a title game match or a consolation match. And then I justified it by, well, it's not the worst thing to have 2 kickers anyway. Folk could get COVID. Who knows? So if I had anybody, but like if I had a Butker or a Gay or, Tucker, anybody else, besides Folk, I'm carrying 1 kicker at FFPC. And I'm carrying 1 or 2 defenses, depending on who the first defense is and how bad I needed a 3rd tight end, basically, is what it comes down to. Like if I'm rolling with, Higbee and O'Shaughnessy, like if O'Shaughnessy was my 2nd tight end, which he is on a lot of those, sometimes I felt like I needed to try to add a 3rd, carry 3. So it just kind of depends on who my first one is. If it's a Kelsey or an Andrews, then I'm comfortable going with 2, and then I would carry a 2nd defense more regularly. But that's kind of where the trade-off lied, is if and it also depended on who the first defense was, it's New England. Well, there again, I generally was carrying another one because I needed one for the week 14 bye, so that's not a great example. But if I had an elite defense, then I was more willing to just roll with 1. But if I had like a Chargers defense for the week 14 matchup, I tried to get a complementary defense if I could.
See, Theo, he's already ready for best balls. That's exactly your best ball building, right? You go a little higher at a position, you can be a little thinner.
I'm sure that the high volume best ball people want Chad to stay away from the best ball, though. So
they're like, JD, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, keep him out of the best ball streets. And just out of curiosity, for your NFFC teams, how many tight ends are you usually keeping? Are you a 2 tight end guy, or are you some teams maybe carrying 3?
There's a few teams that I'm carrying 3. Like if I'm, like for example, I might have I lost Logan Thomas on a lot of teams going into that last FAAB run, and so like let's say that I had. Like some teams had Logan Thomas and O'Shaughnessy, for instance. And O'Shaughnessy and Seals Jones wasn't good enough for me. So that's a case where I'd try to add a 3rd. Also, where I had Hawkinson, I was a little bit worried that he wasn't going to play again. Mm-hmm. So on all those teams at both not all of them, but on some of if I had like Hawkinson and Dawson Knox at NFFC, I would roll with 2. But if I had Hawkinson and O'Shaughnessy, then I would try to add a Seals Jones or something at NFFC. I just was a little scared going with O'Shaughnessy rolling into the playoffs if Hawkinson was done. So
I think that's very, very great information right there on the tight end spot.
Let me follow up real quick, Theo, on that.
Yeah,
so we're talking. I'm assuming you're probably going two quarterbacks on most every league, Chad?
Yeah, there was a few that I was considering going naked and not having it, but with this COVID onslaught coming on, I just like for instance on my Tom Brady teams, I don't really see him getting hurt. I think he's too smart. He probably isn't going to get hurt. If he does, it's probably going to chances are it's early in a game where I'm going to be screwed anyways for the main event race. But at the end of the day, I thought, well, he could get COVID on Wednesday and not play the game. And so Gabbard or if there was a better option, it's probably worth having a second quarterback because of the COVID. If it was just strictly injuries to deal with, I would have gone just Brady on some teams into the playoffs if it was the days of old. But ultimately, I don't think I did that at all. I always have two quarterbacks and occasionally three quarterbacks. Like if I had Jalen Hurts and Cam Newton and Minshew, I just was uncomfortable with just
Dan's quarterback right there. No.
I was uncomfortable going with just Hurts and Newton, knowing that they could both lose their jobs at any point.
Right.
Or if Taysom Hill was involved, I'm not worried about his hand. So
narratives are playing a big part in how deep you are at a certain position, basically.
Yeah, if I would go with three at a position, those one starter positions, if I was really weak and desperate at it,
Yep. So then you've got most of your roster tied up, obviously in wide receiver and running back. Do you tend to skew one way or the other, or does it just depend on how each team's strengths run?
Again, if I happen to have two really good running backs and a third that I could feel reasonably comfortable with playing if I need him, I would sometimes go with 5 running backs and 7 wides. But usually it was like a 6-6 type of ratio. 6-6 and 2 tight ends and 2 quarterbacks and 2 defense as a kicker, and then I guess 1 extra, depending on what I was weakest at.
Okay.
When you started to go through your, just kind of to help out our listeners, has there been any start-sit questions where you're kind of going back and forth on a particular start-sit right now? I know you have many teams, but is there any one that kind of stands out right now as a start-sit?
No, and I saw that on the show sheet, and I just wasn't mentally prepared to start going through my teams. I just prefer to do that on Thursday since there's no FAAB anyway.
Plus, Theo, Chad doesn't need our help, clearly.
No. I was more
trying to saying that, but I just don't. My brain is shot, man. After all this FAAB, I'm not.
I love how honest Chad's being, man, with the volumes, guys. So, and I only say that because people see these tweets or see guys like Chad, and they're like, oh yeah, I could easily get that many teams in if I had that many buy-ins. And no, man, it's even harder than having your handful of teams that you have right now. I'm gonna go waiver wire. I know this is Theo. Sorry, Theo. I know this is kind of your realm, but what is one of your biggest hits? We've got you've got the obvious guys. The Pattersons. Who's the guy that stands out to you as one of your biggest hits when it comes to waiver wire? Maybe you've got a few of them on multiple teams. Oh, did we?
Yeah, I thought you said Thad. Did you say Chad?
No, yeah.
No.
Sorry,
oh, yeah.
sorry.
No, yeah, that was for you, Chad.
Okay. I guess his name's Theo, not Thad. So, okay, my bad. Yeah. So this is a question I thought about a little bit because I've been in some debates over the season on Twitter regarding Elijah Mitchell. Now, would I like to have Elijah Mitchell right now? Absolutely.
I love it.
being the fact that free agency is one of my best weapons and tools, I know for a fact I would have qualified a lot less teams if I added Mitchell and wasted $800 to $900 versus adding, I was a little ahead of the curve, but here's some examples. Like Dawson Knox, I was a little bit ahead of the curve on him where I needed tight ends, but then he started having some more good weeks. And then there was a week where he was going for over $100. And if I needed him, I cleared that. So that's one example, especially at FFPC. He's probably on well over half of my main event teams, and he's been very, very critical. You look at his stats when he's played, and a little bit of touchdown flukiness is involved. No question about it, but he's been a big-time difference maker. He's not far off the levels of Andrews and Kelsey and those guys.
Chad, at his price coming into the season in that offense, it was a no-brainer, especially tight end preems.
Yeah, and he was undrafted in most, I believe.
I picked them up in the fishbowl off waivers earlier in the season. That's how, people were not paying attention to Knox.
So he's one of my most owned players right now, and he's got a lot to do with my success because I'm not usually a big tight end early guy, and so I caught up immediately at the position there and should have one extra player, on those teams. But anyway, he's a big one, and if I spent up on Elijah Mitchell, I wouldn't have got him on a lot of the teams that I needed him. And then as we go through the season, I drafted Booker on a vast majority of my teams and then released him when he was inactivated, week 6 or something. It was kind of a surprise. I think it was more of a fact that he doesn't play special teams type of situation. And I overreacted to it, as did most of everybody, and dropped him. And once I saw he was activated again the next week, I re-added him back on 100% of leagues where he's available. So that didn't cost me a lot. But then the teams where I didn't have roster space for him, then I went ahead and bid big when Barkley got hurt and got him. So that's another one. And then Dearness Johnson was a key add on a lot of my teams. I didn't go crazy on him, but having a lot of volume. If you go, smallish to mid range, you're going to sneak him through your fair share. And so I was at least even weight on him. He really was a valuable player. For a couple weeks, he put up elite numbers, and then keep on going through. Van Jefferson, he costs varying amounts of money in different formats, maybe not quite as much at the FFPC, just the way it shakes out. You don't have to play 3 receivers there, So, but at the NFFC and FFWC, he costs some serious dough. Sometimes when somebody would make a dumb drop of him, I was always there to scoop him up. And depending on how he did that week, he cost some serious change. And he's one of my most owned players now. Quarterbacks, we got, Taysom Hill, and he cost some money on some spots, not as much as I was expecting. Overcooked him a little bit where I was weak at quarterback. And then just the general streaming of kickers and defenses. You cannot do that if you shortchange yourself with that Elijah Mitchell type of bid. And so I think that I made up somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 points on average by streaming defenses and kickers. Now, I would not have been able to do that if I paid up for Mitchell. And that's also what made this whole thing a lot bigger pain in the ass than it could be. A lot of people won't bother streaming kickers and defenses, and I'm kind of anal in that way. I look at it, I play a lot of DFS, So I like to look at each of my teams as like
How the
fielding the best
DFS? That's what I'm wondering. How do you have time for DFS, Chad?
Well, it hasn't gone so well. Only showdowns is all I've played this year, and I've gotten my ass handed to me. It's mostly NBA and NASCAR that I play here.
Okay.
Very heavy. So
I just want to, because Dan, you put up Kyle's comment, and that was my reasoning for Knox. I'm wondering, Chad, like, is that what you're looking at? Like, just basically like a good QB, a good offense, and a late a late tight end. Like, is that something that you're looking at? As Kyle kind of identified something there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just it. And it looked like he was, the Bills' offense has been a little challenging to watch at times this year. Wasn't quite what I was expecting. I rarely draft early quarterbacks, but I have a lot of Josh Allen this year. He's been pretty good, but it's been ugly to watch at times. But the stats have gotten there. Like he's my quarterback on the 20K NFFC league. And many other NFFC leagues. I thought that there became a point in the fourth round of drafts where at the NFFC where it sort of hit a little bit of a dead spot. Mm-hmm. So I thought I would go ahead and try to get a potential big difference maker. I actually liked him more than Mahomes this year. So I wanted, as it turns out, though, I would have had Brady a lot more, though. That was my other main target. So I don't know if it was wise to take Allen. It turns out it wasn't at the NFFC. But anyway, back to the Knox thing. Yeah, high-octane offense, and he's clearly was showing signs of being a primary goal line target early in the season. And you can do worse than having a guy that's a goal line target on a volume team with some speed and some big play potential in there. He's capable of making some big plays here and there. So I just liked what I saw, and I didn't like what I was seeing out of like Jonnu Smith. If I drafted him as my lead tight end, I needed to get on this situation early, because that wasn't looking promising when you're looking at Dwayne's reports, and he's running 40% of the routes on a run heavy team. That's not going to hold up very long, and Knox was running 75% of the routes on a high volume passing team, and looks like a guy that can catch some touchdowns. And so I thought I better get this guy on board, where I was weak at tight end. And he's been very good. I have so much of him that I'm nervous, because a big letdown in the playoffs is going to impact a lot of my teams. But if it happens, it happens. I can't, he got me there, and he was largely responsible for getting me there. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's a good thought. And, one of the things, too, specific to Buffalo is just how little the running backs are involved in the touchdown scoring. And it's been that way for a couple of years. And, so that makes it a little bit more possible for, some of these other players to maintain a larger share of the touchdowns than it seems like they should be able to sustain. So that was one of the things that kind of cued me in on Knox. And, Chad, I think one of the things you said that was really key, too, is, getting off. It's not only who do you get on, but who do you get off? Like getting off guys like Jonnu Smith right away. Before you can't sit there and bleed points at a position, because you're waiting for them to wake up and start scoring. If you've got a guy who's just not performing, you got, maybe you don't want to release him yet, but you at least want to get some other options in there and get them in your starting lineup. So I think that was a great point by you.
It's like in poker, right? They say that the biggest win sometimes is just the hand that you lost. You could have lost way more, but you lost the minimum. It's kind of similar to that. You got to know when to let go. And I think Johnny's a perfect example because you talked about Hunter Henry earlier and the amount of action he got in the red zone. You would have thought that Johnny could have produced in that offense, and he didn't. So getting off him early would have paid off huge this year, leaving that spot in your roster.
You touched on a few of your waiver wire hits, and I'm sure those guys, like you said, they're on multiple teams. Are there a number of other players that you see scattered across your rosters? Who are some of your highest roster percentage players across your teams, Chad?
Going into the playoffs here, I would say Booker is still one of my highest roster players. I held him the whole time here. And he's also gotten a little more playing time. So, you can play him in emergency. He's been scoring 8 to 12 a game here lately, if I'm not mistaken. And I could see them shutting down Barkley if that injury's lingering a little bit, when they're eliminated. I've tried to hold Carlos Hyde, but I finally had to get rid of him on some team. Same thing with James Robinson. I could see them shutting him down here at any point. He's clearly not the same. I'd be hesitant to play Hyde, but if I have to choose between a Dalton Hilliard, that's another waiver ad that I made, was Hilliard. Doesn't look like it's going to work out, but I thought it was a potential. He was one Foreman bad game or not showing signs of life or an injury away from being a damn good option. And it probably won't work out, but and then we got Knox, and on my great teams, you'll see Cooper Kupp on most of them. I was very high on Austin Eckler. Taylor's a disappointing thing for me. I was on him until about the time that I was in Louisville for the Kentucky State Championships, which was pretty darn early in the draft season. And I think around that point is when
the Hines
debacle contract started. And I just thought, well, if they're going to pay this guy the 6th most running back money in the NFL, they have a plan to use him quite a bit. And so it got me off Taylor and got me onto Hines in that Madison, Pollard type of area. So if that never would have happened, I would be much better off because it's gone bad both ways. But that's one thing that comes to mind. I have a lot of Hines. I just never dropped him. I maybe should have.
I don't know. He's a tough player to drop. I mean, everything happens to JT.
Yeah.
And
then he's all of a sudden a 17-point player, I think.
Well, he gives you a floor too. If you really you're stuck.
Yeah, if you're really stuck, you can put him in there.
Yeah, but come on, Chad, you got to buy the dip on the JT, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm disappointed in myself for not reading that one a little bit better, but it's not like I'm naked on him. I'm naked on him at the NFFC where I tend to go receivers early in the drafts if I'm in that back part. But it was Eckler or receivers basically back there. Let's see, a wide receiver. Oh, shit. Oh, my God. I just remembered Laviska Shenault. That was my heaviest player. One of my heaviest players going into the season.
I think
too. We were all on Laviska this summer. It was very disappointing.
Yeah.
He sucks and the offense sucks. He can't run a route. No creativity. if you put like Renfro's route running ability in that body, you'd have something phenomenal. But he can't run a route. He's got no creativity. He can't separate. Just a horrible, horrible pick on my part.
You
I
mentioned
can't believe I made the playoffs in so many leagues, having him that much, to be honest.
well,
And Marcus Callaway right there.
Recovered pretty well off the Callaway and Chenal picks.
Callaway right there with him. That was
Yeah.
a disaster as well.
Wheeler says he was loaded on Visca Fuller and Brian Edwards. Shout out to the ladies in the chat. Johannes and Anna having a pretty in-depth convo in there. Obviously we can't get too much in depth and post everything on the chat, but go check it out in the chat. Some good convo about Davis Mills. Go ahead, Theo.
And a shout out in the chat to Joey Brown, who's leading the FFC Silver Bowl.
Always.
It's great to see him tuning in tonight. Chad,
Nice guy. I wish I could. I don't think I've ever had the chance to meet him in person that I recall, at least. But he's a guy I'd like to meet. He's a nice guy. He comes across as a very nice guy.
Yeah.
Super supportive of the show. Yeah.
Friend of the show and a friend of mine. He's a really good guy. You mentioned Hunter Renfrow. Is there any other players besides the Cordero Pattersons, James Conner, that really surprised you with their performances this year?
Well, Renfro's right up there. I mean, everything's kind of broken his way. When he commanded big money, it was after the unfortunate Ruggs situation that shook me up pretty good. I don't like seeing things like that, obviously, but I didn't bid big on him because I didn't know that his role would necessarily change too much. And then it's just been one series of events after another that have kind of broken his way. Waller going down, his snap count rising substantially. Now he's out there all the time. So I'm very, very light on him, and it's very, very concerning. Like, I don't have him, I don't think, on any of my teams that are going forward in any of these races. And it's hard to believe that he's a big concern, but he is. Elijah Mitchell's a big concern for me. We talked about it earlier. I don't know that I would bid that much on anybody that at that point in the season, because it would take away one of my main strengths. But everything's broken his way as well. At that point, it was possible they would get Sermon's stuff figured out. It was a small sample size at that point that Sermon was deactivated. In that Lions game, the safety made a horrible misread and whiffed on a tackle, and Mitchell took it the root. If that Lions safety makes the tackle, his price is $400 instead of $800. And then I would have got him some. But that didn't happen. And then Hasty, who's a good player in my opinion, and he's never recovered from these ankle injuries that he's had. He's had 2 different high ankle sprains, and he doesn't have his explosiveness that he did prior. The Eagles game, when he got the first high ankle sprain, which was Mitchell's, I believe, first start after that Lions game and the big bidding, Hasty looked by far like the more dynamic player, both running and receiving. And he was in there at the goal line also when he got the high ankle sprain. So Mitchell had a lot of things go right. And the biggest thing he had go right is that Lance never took over the job. That would have killed him. It would be all rushing, no receiving, because Lance wouldn't be checking him down to any receivers ever. Maybe an occasional design screen. But Garoppolo will check down to the receiver or to the back if he doesn't see a read, and Mitchell's a very smooth pass catcher. And then Jeff Wilson isn't as good as what one might have thought he would be. So it took a whole lot of things to go Mitchell's way for him to be this fantasy viable. So I'm not beating myself up over the decision, because I thought a lot of these things out when I decided not to make big plays on him. But he concerns me going forward at this point, because let's face it, things have gone his way. Now we'll see, if he tends to get hurt a lot, and we'll see how big of a difference maker he is. But I wish I had him on some teams, no question. Some other guys, I'm very, very surprised by Leonard Fournette. I still believe right now that Ronald Jones is a better, more explosive runner, but he's also not very football intelligent. And Fournette is far more football intelligent than I thought he was. And things have really broken his way as well. Bernard, I thought was going to, when I was on the show last time with you guys, I was all over Bernard, and that didn't work out. I got, I drafted him a lot and got rid of him a lot early in the season. Not a big expense, but it made my lack of Fournette shares, kind of costly. Everything's broken his way. He's got the third down role. He's got the pass catching role. He's got the goal line role. What running backs would you rather have going into the playoffs? Would you even rather have Kamara than him?
I was going to say, Chad, 2-3 weeks ago as a contender, I hope you were trying to add Fournette to your roster. I know I added him to a couple rosters that are going in strong. He especially in Dynasty. We talked about Dynasty earlier, especially in Dynasty, where a guy like that, you're thinking 4 or 5 years down the road, you're not really there. And we talked about how guys build rosters and they're thinking that far ahead. We don't, but that's how some guys play. So when they think Fournette, they're like, there's no way he's going to be around. He doesn't have as much value. I think he was an easy investment as a contender going into these playoffs this year.
I think Dynasty's not for me. I think I would tar and feather some people when I see these trades go down heading into the play.
They can be a little tilting when you see people just do stupid stuff.
But anyway, Fournette's, his role is tremendous, and luckily I have him on my 20K NFFC team. So there's a place to have him. That's a good one to have him. And then there was one more. No, there's Hunter Renfrow. We already talked about him. That's the main ones that I found the most surprising.
Yeah, I got a lot of Fournette, and it was basically for two reasons. Number one, I have low standards, so I don't care if nobody wants to draft him. If everybody's going to be too cool to draft him, then I'm okay taking him. Mm-hmm. And secondly, it would just kind of happen to work out that I was trying to do a lot of Tampa stacks. I was on Brady like you were, and trying to add in Godwin or Evans or Antonio Brown or whatever. But Fournette was always just kind of a cheap ad that you could get in there. And, I had no idea that he was going to be as good as he is. I'd be lying if I said I did, but, a lot of times it's just taking those shots, and I could take the shot on Fournette, and I would either take Fournette or Ronald Jones, and then I'd pair him up with Gio later. And, I figured, well, I've got 2/3 of it covered. Yeah. So, that's just kind of the way.
For me, I was drafting Ronald Jones more than Fournette.
Because he was a better value, no?
Just because I believed in his ability a little bit more for some incorrect.
Okay.
But I will say this: after the drafts or after the Thursday night game, and saw how Fournette was used, even though his score wasn't epic, I pushed him up a little bit because I could see. Not this unfolding, but so I do have, him some. in that 20K league was obviously drafted after that game, or so fortunately I landed him there. But so I'm about even weight or a little better on him. But that's a good job by Dan. I thought that Ronald Jones was going to be the better early down option, and I thought that Bernard was for sure going to be the passing down option. And I was wrong on everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were places where Ronald Jones was going before Fournette even. So, it wasn't all.
Oh, I was definitely taking him before Fournette. So.
Yeah, so there you go.
And that might not that could still pay off, Chad. You know what I'm saying? Like we still got
I do. I was adding Ronald Jones all along, so I have a lot of him now. When he get dropped, I would pick him up.
Hint for those waiver wires. Wheeler's asking about CPAT Patterson. I know we kind of glazed over. He's a guy that whether you picked him up for cheap off waivers, some people for $1. Is he someone?
He was on the besides list, right? I thought on the sheet, right? Otherwise, I would have talked about him.
Yeah, no. Wheeler just wants to know how much exposure is Cordero Patterson on a lot of your teams?
On your rosters, yeah.
I would say I'm about neutral weight. I'm way underweight at NFFC because the fact that he's a wide receiver over there, and I generally draft a lot of wide receivers early in the draft, so I didn't see the need for him. I only have him on one team over there. It's a very good diamond 10K team that I'm in the playoffs on. But I don't have him anywhere else over there. But I have him on quite a few, FFPC main event teams and FFWC teams that are going to be in the races. But I wasn't bidding huge on him or anything. But my small bids got him home quite a bit. So
nice.
Is there any big takeaways you have from the 2021 season? Really, anything that we learned from this NFL season, taking into future seasons?
Other than too many leagues.
Yeah, that's for sure. I took a year off for all practical purposes last year because I was concerned about COVID, and I was coming off some lifestyle issues that my head just wasn't going to be in the game. So it was a combination of factors. So this year seems like it's been a more difficult series of events to try to negotiate. And for me, when things, get announced, on a Wednesday at like 6:00 or something, I don't have time to go through and adjust everything because I haven't even got to so many teams yet in the first place. So that's where, luckily there wasn't any two major instances like that. Just seems like it's been the most difficult season to navigate, and that would typically play to my strengths, and maybe it did. I don't know. But if I had less volume, it definitely would play to my strengths. But I think the extended volume didn't allow me to take advantage of some of these things as much as I otherwise might have been able to. But it's been a tough road. We're talking all these impactful guys, CMC and Henry, and the list just goes on and on with these, these injuries and COVID and you name it.
Yeah. One thought on that, Chad. I thought last year was really challenging because we would have these games postponed, and then rescheduled. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was the most difficult part to overcome of last year. But this year, it seems like it's actually been a little bit more difficult because there hasn't been those, postponements or whatever, So when when COVID starts running through a team, I mean, there are just that many players out, and so you're having to deal with more on a week to week basis. And And then, I'm going to start recruiting you right now, Chad, because I would really like to see the FFPC and the NFFC move to Thursday morning waivers instead of Wednesday night waivers.
Boy, I am so with you, dude.
Hey, man. I'm all for that. That'd be
There we go. We got to start moving.
12 noon, Thursday, process the
I
waiver.
would like to see them all do it the same way, though. So,
Right.
So they're all at the same time, so that people aren't like, looking at other people's bids at one place, and then.
That's a good point.
But seriously, what's the point of having it at that time? After that time of night, when it's due now, there's no injury news that's coming in until the next morning. Like, why not give the West Coast people that are just getting off work some time to do this? Why do they have to have it in by 7:00 California time? Why shouldn't it be like run it at like 6 a.m. Eastern or something?
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Too, there's still news coming in at an hour before waivers lock. You're still finding out that so and so didn't practice. Especially for the teams on the West Coast.
If you can run it at 9 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern
10 a.m.
in the morning, 3 hours before the game, you can run it at the same time on Thursday morning, certainly.
Yes, exactly. All right, Chad, we're doing this. We'll talk after. We're gonna set it up.
You might want to take the lead on this, because I think that Alex over at FFPC, if I mention it, it's out.
No, it's all good. We got Alex. We got Alex.
He does not care for me very much. So
no.
If I mention it to him, it's done. That's the idea, isn't it?
All right, I won't bring up your name, but
Greg and Tom, they might listen to me over it.
All right.
And
All
Scott
right,
Ian at FFWC would probably listen to me.
Yeah. So you work on those guys. I'll work on the FFPC.
I got
Alex. Dave might listen to me, and if he says that the idea came from somebody else and mentions it to Alex, it might get through. But.
All right. We're gonna work on that. We're gonna make it happen.
I like it. We'll make it like and then we'll have like a Champions League. It's like soccer, right? And then we'll have the Champions League of fantasy once all the leagues combined. It's all good, man. We'll plan this out. Chad, this has been a blast, man. Like, I know I do, and I'm sure Dan and Theo and the audience, like, just your honesty with everything about it, even just managing this many teams, a lot of it, just a lot of your honesty, man. That's why we love having you on the district. We appreciate that you're a friend of the show. Anything you want to tell the people or share before we close this out? I mean, we wish you a ton of luck with all your rosters, and man, just anything you want to share before we close it out.
No, I mean, just at this point, sometimes people tend to over manage their teams. Just follow the process you always follow. Don't make the situation bigger than it is just because you're playing for more money and it's a more key lineup decision. Just go through your process. We could have some weather involved in some of these games. Just look at everything and make a logical call, but don't overmanage your teams. Just stick with your normal process that got you to the position to make these important decisions, and you'll be just fine. And just enjoy it. And it's supposed to be fun, so I'm trying to keep it that way myself. Try not to beat myself up if I make a bad lineup call. I mean, there's a reason I make it. So you're going to get things wrong. Just don't kill yourself over them. So.
Guys, I hope you had your pen and paper out for this one. He's at Chad SCH23, the winningest fantasy player on the planet. And Dan shared the results. Guys, go check out our tweets, our handles at Overhyped Sleeper, no E on the end, at the OG Fantasy, at Goat District. Dan, I know there was a ton of goodness in here. Chad, definitely one of our favorite guests. How are you going to close this out, brother?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just really enjoy talking with Chad. I mean, and you said it already. I mean, Chad, just your honesty and openness about, what your process is and, how difficult it is and everything. I think it's great to hear, because absolutely. I know when I first started playing high stakes, I was like, man, these guys like Chad, man, they've got all the advantages. And like the more and deeper I've gotten into it, I'm like, well, maybe it's not quite as rosy as it all looks. But, the one thing that is absolutely unquestioned is the fact that you have a great process that you go at it 100%. And that's what separates you from the pack. So, congratulations, hope you do well, except in those places where I'm up against you still. But keep going, keep grinding. And we'd love to have you on again sometime.
Theo, all right, sounds good. This is my pleasure, guys.
Theo, I was going to say, you keep bringing the goodness. You've been in charge of most of the guest lists this last long stretch, and Chad is no different, man. What are your thoughts on tonight, and how are you going to close this out?
No, I thought this was tremendous. I loved having Chad on this summer, to his process of drafting, and now we're getting his process for late in the season. I think it's invaluable, and we've had a number of great players on this season. It's been really, really fun talking to them with you two guys. And yeah, we really appreciate you, Chad, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck closing it out here and cashing a bunch of tickets. And I hope that our listeners are going to do the same in their leagues.
Yeah, it's fun. Good luck to everybody in their playoffs.
Appreciate you, Chad. Guys, appreciate you guys in the chat, the questions, the comments, a lot of great discussion going on. I know, Dan, you chimed in on that, and we appreciate you guys tuning in live. Make sure you keep tuning in, guys, every Tuesday, every Thursday, that we can bring you some goodness. One of these high stakes winning guests. We're going to do it, guys. It's crunch time. So we want to make sure that we're bringing you the best material for you to get that ship, get that trophy, get that money. Guys, smash the like, the subscribe. We talk about it. If you're on a buy right now, enjoy it. I know I've got a bunch. Dan, we have two of our Dynasty high stakes teams right now on a buy. Enjoy it, guys. Enjoy that bye week. Maybe play some DFS, get signed up on the FFPC, play those playoff challenge tournaments, which are a ton of fun. And yeah, man, I mean, get the W's. At the end of the day, it's all about getting the wins. Whether it's the money, the trophy, whatever you care about, just good luck this week. Be kind. And as we tell you every week, guys, we'll check you all later.
Go district, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.